What would you do if your boyfriend called you too toxic for marriage, then proposed to your cousin 6 hours later at your family reunion? Well, I had three mini cameras, a $30 fake ring, and a revenge plan that would make them both wish they'd never messed with me. This is how I turned their perfect proposal into the most devastating family scandal of all time. Right now, I'm sitting on a cliff in Santorini, watching the sun melt into the Mediterranean. The wind is warm against my face, carrying the scent of salt and wild herbs. For the first time in 4 years, I can actually breathe. Really breathe. But 3 weeks ago, I was standing in my childhood backyard in Ohio, surrounded by the same people who've watched me grow up, watching the man I thought I'd marry get down on one knee. The same man who'd shared my bed for 4 years. The same man who knew how I liked my coffee and that I cried during dog commercials. Not for me, though. For my cousin, Mia. Let me back up. That morning started like any other family reunion. Aunt Carol was already complaining about the potato salad. Uncle Jim was manning the grill like it was his personal kingdom. Kids were running around with sticky fingers and grass-stained knees. It was supposed to be perfect. It was supposed to be our announcement day. Derek had been acting strange for weeks leading up to this. Distant, distracted, always on his phone. When I'd ask him about it, he'd give me this look like I was being paranoid, like I was being too much. Again. That morning, he pulled me aside under the old oak tree where we used to hang a tire swing as kids. His hands were shaking, and I thought he was nervous about announcing our engagement to the family. I thought he was about to tell me he loved me. Instead, Derek looked me straight in the eye and said I was too toxic for marriage. Said I wasn't wife material, that I was too intense, too emotional, too needy. He made me feel like I was broken, like something was fundamentally wrong with the way I loved people. His exact words were, "Olivia, you're just not the kind of woman a man builds a life with. You're the kind of woman who tears one down." I felt something inside me crack. Not break, but crack, like ice on a lake that's still holding. But you can hear it starting to give way. Then, 6 hours later, while I was still processing what he'd said to me, still trying to figure out how 4 years could just evaporate, like that Derek got down on one knee in front of my entire family. But not for me. For Mia. My cousin Mia, who'd been texting someone all day with this secretive little smile. Mia, who'd worn a white dress to a family barbecue. Mia, who'd been avoiding eye contact with me since she arrived. The ring slipped onto her finger like it belonged there. Like it had always been meant for her. Cameras started flashing. My aunt started crying those fake happy tears. Everyone was gasping and clapping like they were watching the most beautiful love story unfold. And me? I just stood there 20 feet away holding a paper plate with a half-eaten burger that suddenly tasted like cardboard. Smiling. Eerily calm. Because while everyone thought they were watching a spontaneous proposal, I knew exactly what I was really seeing. A performance. One that had been rehearsed behind my back for months. One that I'd been gathering evidence for without even realizing it. See, what Derek didn't know was that I'd been 3 steps ahead of him the entire time. What my family didn't know was that this wasn't the end of my story. This wasn't me getting discarded like yesterday's trash left to pick up the pieces while everyone else celebrated. This was just the beginning of the most satisfying revenge I've ever pulled off. And trust me, by the time I was done, Derek would learn exactly what toxic really looks like. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how this all really started. Derek and I met 4 years ago at a coffee shop near campus. I was a grad student buried in marketing textbooks, surviving on caffeine and determination. He was this steady, reliable guy who worked in finance. Safe, stable, predictable, in the best possible way. I remember thinking he was exactly what I needed. See, my whole life I'd been the intense one. The one who felt everything too deeply. The one who cared too much. Derek was like this calm harbor in the middle of my emotional storms. For 4 years, we built this quiet, comfortable life together. Sunday morning pancakes, Netflix binges on his couch. He'd rub my feet after long days, and I'd iron his work shirts because he was hopeless with an iron. We talked about getting a dog, about buying a house with a big backyard, about kids with his eyes and my stubbornness. But here's the thing about my family that you need to understand. Growing up there was always Mia, my cousin Mia, who's 6 months younger than me, but somehow always felt like she was light years ahead in every way that mattered. Mia was the pretty one, the charming one, the one who could walk into any room and have everyone eating out of her hand within 5 minutes. She had this laugh that sounded like music and this way of tilting her head when she talked that made grown men stumble over their words. At every family gathering, it was the same story. "Oh, Mia, you look gorgeous. Mia, tell us about your new job. Mia, are you seeing anyone special?" Meanwhile, I was the responsible one, the one who helped clean up after dinner, the one who remembered everyone's birthdays but somehow still felt invisible. Even my own parents couldn't help themselves. They loved me, don't get me wrong. But when Mia was around, it was like watching people turn toward the sun. She was magnetic, in a way I'd never been. Derek was supposed to be different. Derek was supposed to be mine. For 3.5 years, he was. He'd roll his eyes when my family would gush over Mia at gatherings. He'd squeeze my hand under the table when she'd monopolize conversations. He told me once that he didn't understand why everyone made such a big deal about her. He said I was more beautiful because I was real. That should have been my first warning sign. The fact that he had to tell me I was more beautiful than my cousin. Like it was something that needed to be said. But I ignored it because Derek was my anchor. In a family where I'd always felt like I was fighting for space, Derek made me feel like I was enough, like I was chosen, until I wasn't. The changes started about 6 months ago, but they were so subtle I almost missed them. Derek started working late more often. He'd come home smelling different. Not like another woman, but like a new cologne I'd never smelled before. Something expensive and sophisticated that definitely wasn't the Old Spice he'd been wearing since we met. He started dodging our usual dinner plans. Rain check became his favorite phrase. When we did go out, he'd be on his phone more than usual. Texting someone, always texting someone. When I'd ask who he was talking to, he'd give me this look. This patient, slightly annoyed look like I was being paranoid. Like I was being that girlfriend. The clingy one. The insecure one. "It's just work, Liv," he'd say. And I'd believe him because I wanted to believe him. Because the alternative was too devastating to consider. The family reunion was supposed to be our comeback moment. We'd been distant for weeks, barely talking, barely touching. But Derek suggested we announce our engagement there. He said it would be perfect. He said my family would be so happy for us. I should have known something was wrong when he insisted on buying the ring himself. When he wouldn't let me see it beforehand. When he said he wanted it to be a surprise for everyone, including me. I should have known something was wrong when Mia called me the week before the reunion, asking all these weird questions about Derek and me. "Are you guys happy? Is he treating you well? Do you think you'll be together forever?" At the time, I thought she was just being sisterly, caring. Now I know she was fishing for information, making sure I was clueless enough for their plan to work. But here's what Derek didn't count on. Here's what neither of them counted on. You can only push someone so far before they start paying attention. Really paying attention. And I'd been paying attention for longer than they realized. The moment that changed everything happened at 2:07 in the morning on a Tuesday. I remember the exact time because I'd been lying awake staring at the ceiling, wondering why Derek had come to bed without saying goodnight. Again. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, twice, 3 times. I was closest to it, and the buzzing was loud enough to wake the neighbors. Derek was dead asleep, snoring softly, so I reached over to silence it. Just being considerate, just trying to let the man sleep. The screen lit up, and I saw a text notification from someone named Ashley. The preview was right there, impossible to miss. "Can't wait to see you again. I miss your hands." My breath caught in my throat. I miss your hands. Not I miss you. Not I miss talking to you. I miss your hands. My heart started pounding so hard, I was sure it would wake Derek up. But he just kept sleeping peaceful as ever while my entire world tilted sideways. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew it was wrong, but my fingers were already moving, already opening his phone. His passcode was my birthday because that's the kind of thoughtful boyfriend he'd always been. At least, that's what I thought. I scrolled through the messages from Ashley and each one felt like a knife twisting deeper. Thinking about last night. You make me feel so alive. I can't stop smiling. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold. Something about the way this Ashley person texted felt familiar. The way she used ellipses. The way she signed off with little heart emojis. The way she said babe but spelled it BB. I'd seen this writing style before. I'd seen it for years, so I did something that felt crazy but necessary. I clicked on Ashley's contact information and there it was, hidden in the details almost like Derek had forgotten to delete it. Mia's real phone number. Ashley was Mia. My cousin Mia had been texting my boyfriend for God knows how long and he'd hidden her under a fake name in his phone. I sat there in the dark, holding his phone, scrolling through months of messages between them. Months. This wasn't some recent thing. This wasn't some moment of weakness. This was a full-blown relationship that had been happening right under my nose. Derek's working late again. One message from Mia read, "Perfect. I'll come over after Liv goes to bed." Another one. "She has no idea, does she, God? She's so naive." And Derek's response, "She trusts me completely." Sometimes I almost feel bad. Almost. I wanted to wake him up right then and there. I wanted to shake him and scream and demand answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the part of me that still couldn't believe what I was seeing. Or maybe it was something deeper. Maybe it was the realization that if I confronted him now in the middle of the night, emotional and raw, he'd just turn it around on me. He'd make me the crazy girlfriend who goes through phones. He'd make me the problem. So instead, I took pictures, screenshots of every message I could find. I memorized patterns, times, details. I became a detective in my own relationship, gathering evidence of my own betrayal. The next few weeks were the worst of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal while knowing that nothing was normal. I had to smile and laugh and make dinner plans while knowing that my boyfriend was planning a life with someone else. But the more I watched, the more I learned. Derek would get these calls at specific times. He'd step outside to take them always with the same excuse. "Work stuff, babe, you know how it is." He started buying new clothes. Nicer clothes, the kind of clothes Mia would pick out. Expensive cologne that made him smell like someone I didn't recognize. And Mia started showing up at family events with this glow about her. This secret smile, like she knew something the rest of us didn't. She'd hug me a little too tight, ask about Derek a little too often. "How are things with you two?" she'd ask, and I'd see this flicker in her eyes. Like she was testing me, like she was seeing how much I knew. The family reunion was 3 weeks away, and Derek kept talking about it like it was some big milestone for us. "It'll be perfect," he'd say. "Everyone will be so happy." I thought he was talking about announcing our engagement. I thought we were finally going to take that next step together. But as I put the pieces together, as I watched him text Ashley/Mia when he thought I wasn't looking, I realized what was really going to happen at that reunion. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning to humiliate me in front of my entire family. They were going to make me look like the pathetic girlfriend who got dumped and replaced in the same day. That's when I stopped being the victim and started being something else entirely. That's when I decided to beat them at their own game. I needed help, but I couldn't trust anyone in my family. Not when Mia had them all wrapped around her little finger. That's when I thought of Dylan. Dylan Chen was my best friend from college, but more than that, he was family adjacent. He'd been coming to our reunions for years because his mom and my mom were college roommates. Everyone loved Dylan. He was the guy who fixed Uncle Jim's laptop and taught the kids card tricks. Harmless, invisible, perfect. I called him on a Thursday night 2.5 weeks before the reunion. I was sitting in my car outside a Target trying to figure out how to say what I needed to say. Liv, what's wrong? You sound weird. Dylan, I need your help with something, and I need you to not ask questions until I'm done explaining. There was a pause. Then, okay, I'm listening. I told him everything. The phone, the messages, Ashley being Mia, the way Derek had been acting, the way Mia had been acting. By the time I finished, Dylan was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Dylan, I'm here. I'm just processing the fact that I'm about to help you become a master spy. When do we start? That's why I love Dylan. No judgment, no lectures about how I should just confront them directly. He understood that sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. The next day we met at a coffee shop downtown and Dylan slid a small Amazon box across the table to me. 3 mini cameras, he said quietly. Battery life of about 6 hours each. They connect to an app on your phone. I may have learned a few things in my computer science classes that weren't exactly on the curriculum. I stared at the box. Is this legal? In your own home? Completely legal. In Derek's car that you're a passenger in legal. At family gatherings where everyone knows cameras might be rolling, also legal. Dylan grinned. I did my research. Over the next week, Dylan and I turned into a 2-person intelligence agency. I planted 1 camera in my living room, hidden in a decorative plant Derek never paid attention to. Another one went in his car, tucked behind the rearview mirror. The third one, I kept mobile for opportunities. But the cameras were just the beginning. Dylan taught me how to recover Derek's deleted text messages using cloud backup. Turns out, Derek wasn't as tech-savvy as he thought he was. The deleted messages were a goldmine. Conversations going back 8 months. Detailed plans about how they were going to handle the family reunion. Mia talking about how excited she was to see my face when Derek proposed to her instead of me. She'll probably cry, one message from Mia read. I almost feel bad. Almost. Derek's response. She'll get over it. She always does. Dylan and I created a shared Google Drive folder that we called Project Sunshine. Ironic, I know. Inside that folder, we built the most comprehensive evidence collection I've ever seen. Screenshots organized by date, video clips with timestamps, a detailed timeline of their relationship. But here's where it got really interesting. Dylan convinced me to start tracking Derek's location. Not stalking exactly, but paying attention to patterns. Derek's Google Maps history was wide open, probably because he'd never imagined I'd think to look. Tuesday evenings at the Marriott downtown. Always the same hotel. Always for exactly 2 hours. Thursday afternoons. At a jewelry store I'd never heard of. Saturday mornings at boutiques I couldn't afford. He's not just cheating, Dylan said, scrolling through the location data. He's building a whole separate life with her. That's when I decided to go through Derek's credit card statements. We had a joint account for household expenses, but Derek had his own card for personal stuff. A card I was technically an authorized user on, but had never bothered to check. The receipts told a story I wasn't prepared for. Dinner at restaurants Derek had never taken me to. Expensive lingerie from stores I'd never shopped at. A weekend getaway to Napa Valley that happened when Derek told me he was at a work conference. But the worst one was from Tiffany & Co. $1,500 charged 2 weeks before I found the messages. Derek had bought me a jewelry. Real jewelry. The kind of jewelry you give someone you're serious about. Meanwhile, my last birthday present from him was a gift card to Target. Dylan and I spent hours going through everything, building what he called the dossier. We had photos, videos, financial records, location data, and message logs. We had enough evidence to prove that Derek and Mia had been planning this for months. But the piece that broke my heart was a voice memo I found in Derek's phone. He'd recorded himself talking, probably practicing what he was going to say to me. Olivia, I care about you, but we're just not compatible long term. You're too intense for me. You want too much. Mia understands me in a way you never could. She doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting space. Too intense. That phrase again. Like loving someone completely was a character flaw. Dylan found me crying in my car after I played him that recording. Liv, listen to me. You are not too intense. You are not too much. You're dating a coward who doesn't deserve you, and he's about to find out what happens when someone underestimates you. That night, Dylan and I made our final plan. We had 2 weeks until the reunion. 2 weeks to set the stage for the most epic exposure in family history. Are you sure you want to do this? Dylan asked. Once we start, there's no going back. I looked at our dossier. Months of evidence. Months of lies. Months of being made to feel like I was crazy for noticing that something was wrong. I'm sure, I said. They want to humiliate me in front of my family. Fine, but they're going to find out that I'm not as naive as they think I am. Dylan smiled. Good, because I already ordered the backup equipment. 1 week before the reunion, I got the recording that changed everything. And I mean everything. It was a Thursday night, and Derek had told me he was going to happy hour with his coworkers. Nothing unusual there. He'd been doing that a lot lately. But thanks to Dylan's tech skills, the camera in Derek's car was still rolling whenever he turned on the engine. I was at home, mindlessly scrolling through Netflix when my phone buzzed with a notification from the camera app. Motion detected in Derek's car. I almost ignored it, but something made me open the live feed. Derek wasn't alone. Mia was in the passenger seat, and they were talking in that comfortable, intimate way that people do when they've had the same conversation 100 times before. I quickly hit record and turned up my volume. I can't believe we're actually doing this, Mia was saying. Her voice was giddy, excited like a kid planning a surprise party. Derek laughed. Are you getting cold feet because it's a little late for that now? No, cold feet. I just keep thinking about Olivia's face when you get down on one knee. Do you think she'll cry? Probably. She cries at everything. Derek's voice was so casual, so dismissive, like they were discussing the weather. Then Mia said something that made my blood run cold. She thinks she's planning a wedding, doesn't she? She's been talking about venues and flowers for months. God, she's so clueless. Derek's response hit me like a physical blow. I know. She showed me this Pinterest board last week with all these ideas for our dream wedding. She has no idea that the reunion will be perfect for our announcement instead. Our announcement, not his proposal to me, their announcement about their engagement, but it got worse. Just make sure she can't freak out in front of everyone, Mia continued. You know how she gets when she's emotional. I don't want her making a scene and ruining our moment. Don't worry, Derek said. I'll handle Olivia. I'll pull her aside beforehand and let her down easy. By the time we make the announcement, she'll be too shocked to do anything but smile and pretend to be happy. Let her down easy. Like I was some casual girlfriend he'd been dating for a few weeks, not the woman he'd been living with for 4 years. And you're sure the family will be okay with it? Mia asked. I mean, they all think you and Olivia are this perfect couple. Derek laughed again and the sound made me nauseous. Please, your family has been waiting for someone better to come along for me since day one. You're the golden child, remember? They're going to be thrilled that I finally came to my senses and chose the prettier cousin. The prettier cousin. 4 years together, and that's how he saw me, as the less attractive option he'd settled for until something better came along. But Mia wasn't done. I love that we're doing this at the reunion. It's so poetic, everyone will be there. All the cousins, all the aunts and uncles, they'll all see that I won. Won. Like I was some prize in a competition. I didn't even know I was playing. And the best part, Derek said, is that she'll have to sit there and watch it happen. She'll have to congratulate us and act happy because that's what good family members do. She'll have to pretend it's not killing her inside. They kept talking, planning out the details of my public humiliation, like they were organizing a dinner party. They talked about the timing, the location, even what Mia should wear to make sure she looked perfect in all the photos. I bought a white dress, Mia said, just in case people want to take pictures. A white dress to her cousin's boyfriend's proposal. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Perfect, Derek said. And I already told my parents we have big news to share. They're flying in just for this. His parents. The people who'd been asking me about grandchildren for the past 2 years. They were coming to watch their son propose to my cousin. As I listened to them laugh and plan and destroy my life with such casual cruelty, something inside me shifted. The hurt was still there. The betrayal was still there. But underneath it all was something new. Rage. Cold, calculated rage. They thought they were so smart. They thought they had planned the perfect public betrayal. They thought I was going to sit there like a good little victim and take it with a smile. They thought wrong. I called Dylan immediately. "Did you get it?" he asked, picking up on the first ring. "I got everything," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Dylan, they're not just cheating, they're staging a performance. They want to humiliate me in front of my entire family." "What do you want to do?" For the first time in weeks, I smiled, really smiled. "I want to give them exactly what they're asking for. A performance, just not the one they're expecting." "I'm listening." "They want to make an announcement at the family reunion perfect. I'll make sure it's an announcement no one will ever forget." Dylan was quiet for a moment, then he chuckled. "Olivia, remind me to never get on your bad side." "Too late for that advice, Dylan. Derek and Mia just made the biggest mistake of their lives." And I meant every word. The next morning, I woke up and did something I'd never done before in my life. I became an actress. Derek was in the shower when I made coffee and set out his favorite breakfast. Scrambled eggs, wheat toast, orange juice, the works. When he came downstairs, I was sitting at our kitchen table with the biggest smile I could manage. "Good morning, handsome," I said, like nothing in the world had changed. Derek looked surprised. We hadn't been particularly warm with each other lately, and here I was acting like a 1950s housewife. "Morning," he said cautiously. "You seem happy." "I am happy." I took a sip of my coffee and looked at him with what I hoped were loving eyes. "I was thinking last night about us, about our future, and I realized something." Derek sat down across from me, and I could see him trying to read my face. "What's that? The family reunion is next week, and I think it would be perfect to share our engagement news with everyone. All at once. Don't you think that would be special?" I watched Derek's face carefully. For just a second, his eyes widened. Then he recovered, but I caught it. "You want to announce our engagement at the reunion. Why not? Everyone will be there. It would be such a beautiful moment." I reached across the table and took his hand. "Plus, you know how my family loves drama and big announcements. They'd be thrilled." Derek squeezed my hand, and I could practically see the wheels turning in his head. He was probably thinking about how perfect this was, how I was basically handing him the exact setup he and Mia had been planning. That's actually a great idea, Liv." "I'm so excited," I said, pouring enthusiasm into my voice. "It's going to be perfect." And it was going to be perfect, just not in the way Derek thought. That afternoon, while Derek was at work, I started executing the most elaborate plan I'd ever conceived. First stop, a jewelry store downtown that specialized in replica pieces. "I need an exact copy of this ring." I told the jeweler, showing him a photo I'd taken of my engagement ring while Derek was sleeping. The jeweler studied the photo carefully. "This is beautiful work." "Original Tiffany." "Yes." "How much for a replica? With cubic zirconia instead of the diamond, about $30. $30. Derek's love for me could be replicated for the cost of a dinner at Olive Garden. "Perfect. How quickly can you make it?" 2 days. While I waited for the replica ring, I opened a secret bank account. I'd been saving money for our wedding for months, money Derek didn't know about because it came from freelance work I did on weekends. $3,000 that was supposed to go toward our dream wedding. Instead, it was going toward my escape plan. I also rented a safety deposit box at a bank across town. When the replica ring was ready, I carefully swapped it for the real one. Derek never noticed. The real ring, along with copies of all our important documents, went into that safety deposit box, along with a letter I'd written to myself. A letter I hoped I'd never need but wanted to have just in case. Then came the hardest part. I had to book a flight. I sat in my car outside the bank, staring at airline websites on my phone. Santorini, Greece. I'd always wanted to go there. Derek had promised we'd honeymoon there someday, but someday never came. One-way ticket, departing Monday morning the day after the reunion, $789, money I was supposed to spend on wedding invitations. I hesitated for a long moment before clicking purchase. This wasn't just booking a vacation, this was booking my new life. But I wasn't done yet. Dylan and I had spent the past week editing together the most devastating exposé video I'd ever seen. 7 minutes of pure evidence, screenshots of Derek and Mia's messages, audio from their car conversation, photos of Derek's credit card receipts, a timeline of their entire affair laid out in brutal detail. We called it The Truth About Derek and Mia, a Family Story. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Dylan asked as we scheduled the video to upload automatically to a private YouTube link at 6 a.m. on Monday morning. "Once this goes live, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure," I said, "but I want them to have one last perfect night believing they're getting away with it." The final piece of my plan was the family group chat. Sunday night after the reunion, I was going to send that YouTube link to everyone. Every cousin, every aunt, every uncle. Everyone who would be there to witness Derek's proposal to Mia would get to see the truth exactly 6 hours later. But first, I had to get through the reunion itself. I had to stand there and watch Derek propose to my cousin knowing what I knew and react like a normal person who was genuinely surprised. The morning of the reunion, I woke up early and packed a single suitcase. Everything I really cared about fit into one bag. Funny how little you actually need when you're starting over. I chose my outfit carefully. A simple blue dress that made me look put together but not overdressed. I wanted to look good in all the photos that were about to be taken, the photos that would document the moment my old life ended and my new one began. Derek was nervous that morning. Really nervous. He kept checking his phone and adjusting his collar. "You okay?" I asked, playing the concerned girlfriend one last time. "Just want everything to go perfectly today," he said. "It will," I assured him. "Everything is going to go exactly as planned." And I meant every word, because for the first time in weeks, I knew exactly what was going to happen. Derek and Mia thought they were in control of this story. But they were wrong. I was about to take control back, and by tomorrow morning, everyone would know the truth about the golden couple and their perfect love story. As we drove to my family's house, Derek reached over and squeezed my hand. "I love you, Liv," he said. I squeezed back and smiled. "I know exactly how much you love me, Derek, and after today, so will everyone else." Walking into my family's backyard that Sunday afternoon felt like entering a movie set. Everything looked exactly the same as every other family reunion we'd ever had. Uncle Jim at the grill arguing with my dad about the proper way to cook burgers. Kids running around with water balloons. Aunt Carol setting up the dessert table like she was arranging flowers for a magazine shoot. But the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Mia was already there when Derek and I arrived, and I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. She was wearing a white sundress. White. To a family barbecue. She looked like she was going to a garden party at the country club, not a backyard cookout with potato salad and paper plates. She'd also done something different with her hair. Styled it in these perfect waves that probably took 2 hours. Full makeup designer sandals the works. She looked beautiful, I'll give her that. But she also looked like someone who was expecting to be the center of attention. Derek, on the other hand, looked like he was about to throw up. He kept checking his phone, adjusting his shirt, scanning the crowd like he was looking for someone. Or maybe looking for the perfect moment. I meanwhile played my part perfectly. I hugged everyone. I complimented my mom's new haircut. I asked my teenage cousin about school. I was the picture of a happy girlfriend who had no idea her world was about to implode. "Olivia, honey, You look radiant, my Aunt Linda said, pulling me into one of her suffocating hugs. You and Derek must have some exciting news to share soon. I smiled sweetly. Oh, you never know what might happen at these family gatherings. Derek overheard that exchange, and I saw him stiffen. He was probably wondering if I suspected something, if I was planning to announce our engagement before he could break up with me. If only he knew. Dylan arrived about 20 minutes after us, carrying his usual contribution to family gatherings, a cooler full of craft beer that made all the men love him. He caught my eye across the yard and gave me the slightest nod. Everything was in place. For the next hour, I watched Derek and Mia try to act normal. They were both doing terrible jobs. Mia kept giggling at things that weren't funny, and touching her hair like she was posing for invisible photographers. Derek kept disappearing to take phone calls that probably weren't real. They barely looked at each other, which was smart. But they also both kept looking at me, which was not smart at all. My parents, meanwhile, were in full hosting mode. My mom kept asking if Derek and I were okay if we needed anything, if we were having fun. My dad kept making jokes about when we were going to make him a grandfather. Normal family stuff that felt absolutely surreal, given what I knew was coming. Everything's perfect, Mom, I assured her when she pulled me aside to check on me for the third time. Derek and I are just enjoying spending time with everyone. She smiled and patted my cheek. You two seem so happy. I'm so proud of the life you've built together. My heart broke a little at that moment. Not for Derek, but for my parents. They were about to be blindsided just as much as I was supposed to be. Around 4 o'clock, Derek finally made his move. I was helping my cousin Sarah wrangle her toddler when he appeared at my elbow. Liv, can we talk privately? Here we go, I thought. Showtime. Of course, I said, handing Sarah her son. Is everything okay? Just need to talk to you about something important. He led me toward the back of the yard to the old oak tree where we used to hang a tire swing as kids, the same tree where he'd kissed me for the first time at a family reunion 3 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. What's going on? I asked, arranging my face into an expression of mild concern. Derek took a deep breath, and I could see him steeling himself for what he was about to say. Olivia, I need to be honest with you about something. About us. Okay, I kept my voice steady, curious but not alarmed. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I've realized that we're just not compatible long term. You're not wife material, Liv. You're too intense, too emotional. You want too much from people. I blinked at him, letting his words hang in the air for a moment. This was it. The speech he'd practiced. The moment he'd been building up to for weeks. I don't understand, I said softly. I'm trying to let you down easy here, Derek said, and there was actually irritation in his voice, like I was making this harder than it needed to be. We're just not right for each other. I need someone different. That's when Mia appeared as if on cue. She walked up to us with this perfectly timed look of surprise on her face. Oh, sorry, am I interrupting something? Derek turned to her and his whole demeanor changed. His shoulders relaxed. His face softened. He looked at Mia the way he used to look at me. Actually, he said, your timing is perfect. And then Derek got down on one knee. The entire backyard seemed to freeze. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Uncle Jim turned away from the grill. Kids stopped running. Everyone was staring. Mia, Derek said, pulling out a ring box. I love you. I've loved you for months. Will you marry me? Mia gasped and covered her mouth with her hands like she was genuinely surprised, like this wasn't the moment she'd been planning for weeks. Yes, she whispered. Then louder. Yes, of course. The ring slipped onto her finger perfectly. Cameras started flashing. People started cheering. My Aunt Linda was already crying. Someone shouted for champagne. And through it all, Derek and Mia kept glancing at me, waiting for my reaction. Waiting for me to fall apart. Waiting for me to scream, or cry, or make a scene that would ruin their perfect moment. Instead, I smiled. A genuine, peaceful smile. Congratulations, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. You two deserve each other. Derek's face went white. That wasn't the reaction he'd been expecting. Mia's smile faltered for just a second, confusion flickering in her eyes. Everyone else took my words at face value. Of course I was being gracious. Of course I was happy for them. That's what good family members do, right? But Derek and Mia heard something else in my tone. They heard the truth. You deserve each other. Not in a good way. I turned and walked back toward the house, leaving them to accept congratulations and pose for pictures. I could feel eyes on me, family members probably wondering why I wasn't more upset. But I didn't care. Dylan intercepted me by the back door. Oh, how do you feel? He asked quietly. Free, I said. And I meant it. Behind us, the celebration continued. Derek and Mia were the center of attention just like they'd planned. Everyone was happy. Everyone was surprised. Everything had gone exactly according to their script. They had no idea that in about 14 hours, the real show was going to begin. I left the reunion around 8 that evening, claiming I had a headache and needed to get some rest. Derek was too busy basking in congratulations to pay much attention to me. Perfect. The drive home was surreal. 20 minutes earlier, I'd been watching my boyfriend propose to my cousin. Now, I was driving back to the apartment Derek and I shared, knowing it was the last time I'd ever see it. I had about 10 hours before my flight to Santorini. 10 hours to finish what I'd started. The apartment felt different somehow. Smaller, like it belonged to someone else's life. I walked through it slowly, looking at all the things Derek and I had accumulated together. The couch we'd picked out at IKEA, the photos from our trip to Colorado, the coffee mugs that said his and hers that his sister had given us last Christmas. None of it felt like mine anymore. I went to our bedroom and found the fake engagement ring sitting on my dresser exactly where I'd left it that morning. $30 of cubic zirconia that Derek had somehow failed to notice wasn't the real thing. Says everything you need to know about how closely he'd been paying attention to me lately. I placed the ring carefully on Derek's pillow along with a note I'd written earlier. Cheap like your taste. P.S. Check the family group chat. Simple, direct, and a promise of what was coming. Then I did something I'd been planning for weeks. I packed my things. Not everything, just the stuff that mattered. Clothes, my laptop, some jewelry my grandmother had given me. It all fit into 2 suitcases, which told me everything I needed to know about how much of this life was actually mine. I left everything else exactly where it was. Let Derek figure out what to do with the his and hers coffee mugs. My flight wasn't until 9 the next morning, so I spent the night at Dylan's apartment. We stayed up until about 3, putting the finishing touches on our masterpiece. The video was perfect. 7 minutes of pure devastating truth. We'd started with the car recording where Derek and Mia talked about their plan, their casual cruelty, their excitement about humiliating me. Then, we'd layered in the text messages, the credit card receipts, the location data, everything organized chronologically to tell the complete story of their affair. The final minute was my favorite part. Dylan had found security footage from the hotel where they'd been meeting. Nothing inappropriate, just Derek and Mia walking into the lobby together hand in hand on a Tuesday afternoon when Derek had told me he was working late. The timestamp on the video was clear as day. Are you really ready for this? Dylan asked as we scheduled the video to auto-upload to YouTube at exactly 6 a.m. Once this goes out, there's no taking it back. I've never been more ready for anything in my life, I said. At 5:45 a.m., I was already in my Uber to the airport when my phone started buzzing. The family group chat was exploding. 6:40 a.m. exactly. Dylan sent the YouTube link with a simple message. Since everyone was there for the proposal yesterday, I thought you should see the whole story. Love you all, Olivia. I didn't read the messages at first. I wanted to get through security, get to my gate, get settled before I dealt with the fallout. But by the time I was sitting at my departure gate with a coffee, curiosity got the better of me. The family chat had over 200 messages in 30 minutes. My mom, Olivia honey, please call me. My dad, what the hell is this, Derek? You need to explain yourself. Uncle Jim, I always knew there was something off about that kid. Aunt Carol. Mia. How could you do this to your own cousin? Cousin Sarah. Oh my God, I can't believe they planned this. At our family reunion. And then buried in the chaos messages from Derek himself. This is all lies. Olivia's making this up because she's jealous. You can't believe this. But Dylan had been thorough. Too thorough. There was no way to claim the evidence was fake when we had Derek's own voice, his own text messages, his own credit card statements. My phone started ringing. Derek first, then my parents, then Mia. I ignored all of them. I'd said everything I needed to say in that video. Dylan texted me around 7. Holy shit, Liv! Your family is pissed! Derek's been calling me nonstop. He wants to know where you are. Tell him I'm somewhere he'll never find me, I texted back. Already did. Also, check this out. He sent me a screenshot from Derek's company's social media page. Apparently, someone had sent them the video. Derek worked in finance, where reputation was everything. The comment section was brutal. No way! I typed back. Way. His boss called him at 7 a.m. He's been fired. Mia's not doing much better. Someone sent the video to her work too. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt like maybe I'd gone too far. But all I felt was satisfaction. They'd planned to humiliate me in front of my entire family. They'd gotten exactly what they'd planned, just not the way they'd expected. My flight started boarding, and I turned off my phone. Whatever was happening back home, I didn't want to know about it yet. I had a 7-hour flight to Greece to process everything that had happened. As I settled into my window seat, I thought about Derek and Mia waking up that morning, probably still glowing from their perfect proposal, only to discover that their whole world had imploded while they slept. I thought about my family, who'd gone to bed, thinking they'd witnessed a beautiful love story, only to wake up and learn they'd been part of an elaborate deception. And I thought about myself 30,000 feet in the air, flying toward a life I'd never planned, but was suddenly desperate to live. The flight attendant came by offering drinks, and I ordered champagne. Why not? I was celebrating. Special occasion? She asked with a smile. You could say that, I said, raising my glass. I'm celebrating my divorce. Congratulations, she said, not missing a beat. Here's to new beginnings. I looked out the window at the clouds below us and smiled. Here's to new beginnings. I agreed. And that brings me back to where we started. Here on this cliff in Santorini, 3 weeks later, watching the sunset over the Mediterranean. I've been walking these cliffside paths every evening since I arrived, and each day I feel a little more like myself again. Not the self I was with Derek, but the self I was before I started shrinking myself to fit into someone else's idea of what I should be. This morning, I finally worked up the courage to call my parents. I'd been avoiding their calls since I landed, not because I was angry with them, but because I wasn't ready to talk about everything that had happened. Olivia, my mom's voice was soft when she answered. Honey, where are you? We've been so worried. I'm safe, Mom. I'm in Greece. Greece! I could hear my dad in the background asking if it was really me. Santorini, actually. Remember how Derek used to promise that we'd honeymoon here someday? Well, I decided not to wait for him. There was a long pause. Then my mom said something I didn't expect. Good for you, sweetheart. I'm proud of you. You're not angry about the video about how I handled everything. Are you kidding? That was my dad who'd apparently taken the phone. Honey, what they did to you was cruel and calculated. They planned to humiliate you in front of the entire family. You just made sure the truth came out. Your father's right, my mom added. We should have seen what was happening. We should have protected you better. It's not your fault, I said, and I meant it. They fooled everyone. We talked for almost an hour. They told me that Derek had been calling them non-stop trying to explain himself, trying to claim I'd manipulated the evidence somehow. But there was too much of it. Too many different sources. Even Derek's own parents had stopped defending him. As for Mia, she'd apparently disappeared too. Packed up and left town without telling anyone where she was going. The engagement was off, obviously. Derek was alone, unemployed, and facing the consequences of his choices. I know I should feel bad for them, I told my parents. But I don't. You shouldn't feel bad, my dad said firmly. They made their choices. Now they get to live with them. After we hung up, I felt lighter somehow. Like I'd been carrying this weight of shame and embarrassment that wasn't even mine to carry. I was sitting in a little cafe overlooking the caldera when my phone chimed with an email notification. The subject line made my heart skip: job offer, remote senior editor position. I'd applied for this job months ago, back when it felt like an impossible dream. A remote position with a small publishing house that specialized in travel writing. I could work from anywhere in the world. I'd assumed they'd found someone else by now, but there it was, an offer letter. They'd been impressed with my portfolio, my interview, my ideas for their upcoming projects. They wanted me to start as soon as possible. The salary was more than I'd been making at my old job. Enough to stay in Santorini for a while longer if I wanted to. Enough to build whatever life I wanted to build. I read the email 3 times before it really sank in. This wasn't just a job offer. This was confirmation that I'd made the right choice. That walking away from Derek, from the life we'd built together, from the plan we'd had, wasn't giving up on my future. It was claiming my future. I accepted the offer on the spot. Tonight, I'm having dinner at this little restaurant right on the cliff's edge. Just me, a glass of local wine, and the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen. The waiter, a friendly guy named Nikos, brought me champagne when I told him I was celebrating. "What are you celebrating?" he asked in accented English. "New beginnings," I said. "Ah, the best kind of celebration," he said with a smile. "To new beginnings, then." As I sit here now, watching the sun disappear into the ocean, I think about everything that led me to this moment. The betrayal, the planning, the revenge, the revelation. It all feels like it happened to someone else. I'm not the same person who found those text messages on Derek's phone. I'm not the same person who stood in her family's backyard and watched her boyfriend propose to her cousin. I'm someone who refused to be a victim. Someone who took control of her own story. Someone who chose herself, even when it was terrifying. I raise my glass to the sunset, to the ocean, to whatever comes next. To new beginnings, I say out loud. The waves crash against the rocks below, and for the first time in years, I feel completely, perfectly free. And you know what? Derek was right about one thing. I am too intense. I am too much. But I'm learning that those aren't flaws to apologize for. They're gifts to embrace. I'm too intense for someone who doesn't deserve my intensity. I'm too much for someone who wants less. But I'm exactly right for the life I'm building now. A life where I don't have to shrink myself to fit into someone else's vision of who I should be. And that honestly is the best revenge of all. If you enjoyed the story of standing up for yourself and choosing your own happiness, hit that subscribe button for more real-life drama and revenge stories. And let me know in the comments, what would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted them directly? Or would you have gone the revenge route too? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.